So technically I've talked about this toy before, but that was in its very heavily remolded phase as Thrustor. This time, however, I thought we'd look at something a little bit closer to the OG Dinobot. No, not those OG Dinobots in red and silver. I mean the one that was actually named Dinobot from Beast Wars. But this, in particular, is the 10th anniversary release. Done up in, interesting. Okay, so here's the idea. 10th anniversary Transformers Beast Wars. They were supposed to be painted to be more accurate to the show, you know? Okay, so they did Rhinox, it was okay, and they did Cheetor, and that was fine, and then they did Tarantulas, that was good, and then they got to Dinobot, and they said, we give up, like, just do whatever, I don't know, because this is the one where it's like, even Rhinox was a little bit more workable, I guess, but, yeah, there's some strangeness. So we have here Dinobot in his Velociraptor mode in questionable proportions. And, yeah, there's always been a few issues with this mold and this mode, haven't there? So, yeah, we're going to get this one out of the way. Big beast mode belly because of massive robot mode legs just hanging off of his underside. No real disguise or anything to it. You know, his feet have the texture. So it kind of, like, no, it doesn't. It's just, it looks bulbous and weird, and it doesn't work in the least. Yeah, that's a interesting design choice. I can see where they could have been designed around it, or they could have been made thinner or something, anything, I don't know, but this has always led to a very questionable looking Velociraptor mode, and I think it's always been probably the biggest downside of the whole toy, which is really unfortunate. So let's just talk Deco Change, for instance, here. So the original Dinobot was more of a sand brown color with very dark beast stripings. This one, as you can see, is more of a chocolate brown with some dark accents all the way down the backside. And while it doesn't look bad, I will say this, I mean, he looks good. He looks, you know, like a brown Velociraptor, you know, because I've seen so many real-life Velociraptors. But it's just really dark compared to how Dinobot looked in the show, and the striping is just not even remotely close. If you looked at, like, Takara's TJOmega release of this figure, the striping is a lot closer to what it's supposed to look like in the show. I'm not sure why, just Hasbro didn't give it that much attention to detail. Speaking of, why are his eyes blue? And, I mean, okay, look, you got silver there at the mouth, and okay, that's fine, and you got all the little touches of brown all the way around his face, so it kind of has that Velociraptor look. Okay, that's okay. Why are his eyes blue? That is the most random choice of color you could have gone with, and I understand Dinobot has blue in him, but not his eyes. Not his eyes. That's weird. Okay, so looking at this toy, this thing got so many repaints and remolds over the years, I'm surprised it's held up as well as it has. So at the very least, you can see all the molding is done really well. The scaling, there's wrinkles and little creases all over. You can see where it's raised up, where his spine is. And everything, for the most part, is pretty much molded fairly well. So that part is good. I will say the Beast Mode tail with its gimmick doesn't really have a lock to it, so this just kind of spins around willy-nilly doing whatever it really kind of wants. Doesn't really have much use here, but we'll get to that. So the Beast Mode itself, yeah, the jaw opens and closes. You also have ball joints in the shoulders, so these little webbed hands he has can move in different directions. I will say, one big advantage to this over the original release, does ditch all the translucent plastic. Looks nice and solid now. And then you do have universal hips as well as knees and thighs, so you have some articulation in this mode at the very least. So let's get him into robot mode and see where the damage was done there. For starters, we plop the tail off, and then we have to flip up his butt. I wish there was an easier way to describe that. There is not. Alright, that all goes to the back. Let's see, what else do we do here? Well, I guess now we flip out these bulbous legs that have It's just such a weird design choice. It's like, why not just leave it, like, why not make it look like the underside of a dinosaur? And don't tell me, like, well, the show designed it to have those bones in his legs, so they had to have it. No, the toy designs came first. Actually, look, the original models for Beast Wars, the show, was much, they had the models much closer to the original look of the toys. So, that show accurate. It's stuck. A show accurate thing that always gets argued to me is like, well, that only works if the show model came first, and 99 times out of 100 they don't. Okay, so that out of the way, we can rotate all of this up into position. Arms come down like this. Little beast mode legs go like so. Now we have to get the head down, which this will automatically move this panel out of the way. That works out well enough. Panel goes down. Sides of the head come out. They go into those little grooves right there. And just shore up everything just a little bit before we actually put him down and call it a robot mode. I'm going to flip out his hands as well. Well, we can call his hands anyway, because this is a little bit suspect as far as hands go, but it's a hand-like thing he has. So, just like that, we have our Beast Wars Dinobot in his robot mode. And again, this is where we start wondering, show accuracy? What's that? We've never heard of that. Both in molding and in paint. We do know that Season 1 of Beast Wars was not the most accurate, because they took a ton of liberties, and I think Dinobot is where they took some of the most. So for starters, let's take a look at that head, which is not the easiest to get on camera because of the mutant head shell. So they did try here. You can see he does have some, well, maybe you can see, he does have some red eyes painted in, which is heavily shot. I'm trying. I am honestly trying. Show the red eyes. Show them. Barely. There, barely. You can see them. God, it's so hard to light the head on this guy because there's so much chunk hanging around his head. But they did try to give it the color of the original. Now, in Japan, they were smart enough to take that faceplate and tampograph a mouth onto it. Here, it just looks like a faceplate, which is kind of unfortunate. We're going to take a look at the color scheme in general in this mode, and you notice there's a few things going weird here. Well, for starters, you can tell they couldn't really figure out how to get Dinobot's signature blue color onto this mold, so they just kind of slapped it around everywhere, which is one reason why his Dino mode eyes are blue, and his knees are now baby blue, and there's a little bit of the blue showing under the beast mode head chest. That's about as best as they could do on this mold. But color-wise, everything is much darker than you would expect Dinobot to be. And the suspicion, what fans theorized, was that the color scheme was actually based on screenshots from Code of Hero after he's taken a lot of battle damage, and it's not the brightest scene in the first place. And I could kind of get behind that. I mean, it is the Dinobot episode. It is the Beast Wars episode, so it'd be what you naturally go to. It does seem strange, though. Like, it's not quite what a lot of us imagined when they said upgraded, more accurate Beast Wars paint jobs. Speaking of more accurate, why are the bones green? Of everything that this color scheme... Well, hang on. Of everything that this color scheme does weird, why are the bones green? Like, this seems like the easiest thing to get right. Just bone white. How difficult is that? He's got a little bit on his pelvis even, where there's some spinal detailing. I don't know why. It doesn't look good in either mode. And it's the one color that just comes out of complete nowhere on this figure. It's strange to me, and I don't get it. Also, they tried really hard to tampograph a Maximal logo onto his chest. All those folds. Not really making that an easy transition, but hey, they tried. So at least this Dinobot is firmly a Maximal. in the actual realm of articulation, you do have a rotation in the head, and all that chunk kibble, which I'll show you here in a bit, does go with it. The universal joints in the beast legs do translate, so do the rotation for a bicep rotation. The hands, which are just the folded in Beast Wars feet, which they did recreate in the show, but it still does look a little bit funny. That does work, but of course he is stuck with no wrist rotation, so these are just kind of pincer claw things for the foreseeable future of this toy. Let's see, nothing in the waist. Hips are okay, but there's some paneling here that does get in the way of the articulation. Fully ball jointed knees, though, so those have full rotation and bend range. And a little bit in the ankle, a little bit, just a little bit. And the heels and the feet also have hinges, so you can adjust balance as needed. So the articulation in this guy isn't terrible, but also is not impressive. I think for Beast Wars in the age of ball joints, when they first started figuring out how to make a Transformer articulated, this was kind of a stepping stone. He didn't quite get the full range of robust articulation that some of the other figures in the line managed to get. So let's see, what else can the toy do real quick? Well, he is the Series 1 Beast Wars toy, so he has the mutant head gimmick. Not that they really gave it much attention, there's no paint on it, and at the very least, the lighter brown does show through for the eyes, so it does kind of have a look to it, but of course, no one really liked the mutant heads. Well, I know some people like the mutant heads, but most prefer the show accurate. And I know a lot of people just hack these things off. So you have that. Also, let's see what that tail did. Let's see, if we open up the tail here and we create his big spin shield weapon. Look on the tail. Oh my god! Hang on, I'll remove the tail storage. What happened here? Remember when I said that they were desperate to get that Dinobot blue color in wherever they could? I meant it, and apparently this was the best idea they had. That's unfortunate, because that's really not a good idea. It is on a spin rotor. So just like in the show, he does have his little spin blade shield thing, so that works pretty well, actually. That's fine and dandy. Doesn't plug in very well, but hey, it is an option. Also makes him extremely weighted to that side. It's a very heavy piece. Alright, can I counterweight him by adding his sword, which is his Spinal Sword. It's segmented, not quite shaped the same, but it's a hard shape to actually mold if you look at it in the show. And can we actually plug that in and give him full-on weaponry here? Can we? Can we? Can we? Stay? Stay? Yay! So at least we have a fully armed Dinobot to wrap up the review. That is Beast Wars Dinobot, the 10th anniversary edition. The mold has issues. When it's one thing, when it's Thrustor and it's it's half machine and it's a cyborg, and you can kind of let some of that slide. But this is trying to be a realistic depiction of a Velociraptor that really, really fails in a lot of segments. And of course, the robot doesn't look bad, but it certainly isn't what you'd expect if you only watch the show. That aside, the look is still okay, but I can kind of criticize the appearance more on this toy because it was meant to be an homage. It's meant to be a more accurate coloring of Dinobot from the original show. And while it does come closer than the first Dinobot toy, it's still quite a ways off from how we remember him looking. So it's a misstep, I feel. When you had 10 years to get the color scheme right on one last repaint of this mold and still get it wrong, yeah, this guy needs a new toy. And I don't mean the Universe toy. This guy needs a real, proper new toy.